Got a stag in the workshop. It's not my one, unfortunately. No, it's a customer one. It's in for very, very light work. I'm going to replace driver's door because it is utterly shot. It's just rotted out all the way around. It's had badly affected repairs at the bottom for now, and I've got a better door to put on it. The passenger door, we're probably going to get away with some localised repairs to the bottom of the frame and maybe a new skin. And then the boot lid, yes. So I'm just going to start the disassembly process. I've actually started the disassembly process. But basically what we're doing here, so the door trim is in the back there. So I need to get to the door frame, which I think is actually only, it's been a while since I've done a stag. There's a bolt at the top on this side. There's the quarter light mechanism there. Someone's written SRF there. There's a bolt here. There's some bolts down here. And I think that's more or less it for the glass frame. Obviously I need to get the regulator off. Probably comes off in exactly the same way as a Range Rover one will come apart. You can see the bottom of this door. It's not beautiful. But it's better than the driver's door. So I thought I'd start with it as a bolt there as well. Look. So it looks like the frame is held in by that bolt. That bolt, that bolt, that bolt, these two bolts, and the frame should come out. Basically I need to get this door completely stripped down. It's going to go up to Steve the body and he's going to do his magic on it. I love it when screws hold trim on, especially when the trim hasn't really got anything left to it to actually do anything. Yeah. So I'll get this thing pulled apart. Now it's a Mark 1 car as well, which means that it's got the single rod for the lock and the handle. So a bit lethargic, but it works. So I'm going to crack on with this because otherwise it's going to end up being me editing out all the noise from the chaps working hard over the road. Once I get this off, I'll come back to you and let you know how we're getting on with it. Just take these bastards out here. What's my arm looking like today? It's a helpful bit of video in that, Richard. Everyone knows who put SRF up there. Yeah, there you go. Someone signed it, haven't they? Dead easy to disconnect the window regulator from the glass. So I wound the window halfway up so I could see the regulator through this aperture here. Undid the 4 bolts from the regulator, pulled the regulator towards the front edge of the door, put the glass down, and it fell off. The regulator fell off the end of the glass, so it basically came out of this end of the channel. And I suspect when I come to put it all back together again, it will go back together exactly the same way. This chappy here, which is for the quarter light mechanism, it literally just goes in this hole here and slides onto a rod in there. So you just undo the 3 bolts and it comes off. I know there's folk that are saying, yeah, we know, but there's plenty of folk out there that don't. So now I'm going to undo the bolts and see if we can get this frame out with the glass intact, which should be relatively straightforward, I think. Let's give it a go. Can you see? You can have a look from up there, can't you? No, you're looking at the roof. Absolutely fucking useless, Richard. Hello. Oh, you can look from there. Right, what are we doing? loose. Right, glass on the top. Entire frame. One glass frame out. Now I'm going to put the glass in the boot, but it'll be laying flat. It comes out of the frame nice and easy. We don't want to be breaking it now, do we? No, Richard, no we don't. So when you're undoing the bolts, obviously the door's going to drop. You've got 6 bolts that go and they're threaded into the door itself. These have not been out for some time. Goes. There's 1 bolt. Rusty on the end there, we'll soon fix that up. The top 2 on here, you need to dash out in order to access them. But I think with the rear one in there, it's not going to go anywhere if I was to undo these 2. Now for the last 2 bolts, I will push the door into the closed position because I don't want it dropping and then damaging the paintwork on the wing or the sill. One more, which is this one here. Now when I open the door, go back there again, holding it, open the door, put it back in this, door off. There's that washer down there. There it goes. I'll then repeat the process with the driver's door. I'll show you what the driver's door looks like when it's all come off. Well, it's the end of the day. I have to go and get my son from university. This is the replacement door that we've got, which someone's fitted a skin to. Looks all right at that edge, and it all lines up. But here, it's a disaster, to be honest. That gap there is way too big, and the reason it's way too big is because they've made this profile here completely flat. No idea why. The skin really wants to kind of be proud of that. If you look at the old wing, you can see that it actually sits up quite proud. 4 or 5 mil. I need to have a chat with Steve to find out what he wants to do about it. Mark 1 doors are quite difficult to get hold of though, and this one is probably a bridge too far. It's absolutely full of filler, and it's had a repair section put on the bottom, so it'll do someone else, but I just think it's probably easier to work with this one than that one. So I'm waiting for Steve to do that. I've got the other door has gone up to Steve to put the skin on, and then I thought, well, I'm going to look at this boot lid. So this is the boot lid that was supplied, and I've popped it on. It's a bit of a horror, and again, boot lids are very difficult to come by. This is a Mark II boot lid, but basically it has rotted out along this entire edge here. I'm not sure I've ever seen one rot out to this extent before. In fact, I'm wondering if that's just a lip of weld down there, because the whole thing as well, the whole surface on this thing, it's like the moon. It's been grip blasted back, but only so far, and then the whole thing is just covered in welding splatter. So the whole boot lid really needs to be prepped back to bare steel, I would have thought. This edge needs fixing. That edge needs fixing. And I'm starting to think, oh, for fuck's sake, really? So here's the original boot lid, one that came off the car, and it is like the driver's door, it's just full of plop. And it's a bit all over the place as well. When you look at it on the other side, it doesn't look so bad now, but when it closes, it deforms because the ribs aren't actually stuck to the skin anymore. So what I'm going to do, I think first and foremost, is I'm going to see if I can grind some of this plop out of here. I'm just going to use the zip wheel and a face mask and make a horrific mess. And see if I can find out whether this boot lid is going to end up being better and less work than that one. Oh, you can't get boot lids anymore. Oh, the other thing about this boot lid, the reason I've taken the seal off, because I cannot get this thing to sit anywhere near. So if I take that down level, look at that. That's going to be the worst fitting boot lid I've ever seen ever. It's not a beauty, and I've got it level at the top here, so when it goes down it's level across the top edge. But really, I think this boot lid just needs too much bloody work for my taste and for the customer's pocket. All of this needs cutting out. This lip needs remaking from scratch. Better the devil you know sometimes. So like I said, I'm going to grind out a load of shit on this. I'll take the catch off. I don't want to damage anything. And we'll see where we are with it. I think this is even less pretty. Yeah, there's some serious build-up of filler on here. Look, on this panel. I think it's had a repair panel put on it before. I've not yet found where it joins on, but the inner frame is in a similar state to the inner frame on the other side. You can see as I'm going along here, whatever moisture was underneath the filler has really kind of accelerated the rods. And here you can see how the skin has come away. Now we could probably fix the skin coming away from the frame. I'm wondering if it might be easier to fix the trailing edge of this frame rather than the other one, but I'm going to need to cut it off really in order to find out for sure. So rather than spread any more of this filler dust around here, I'm going to basically cut this off along here, down here. Well, Steve's done a trial fit on the new Stag Owners Club Tooling Fund Limited door skin. Don't worry too much about this piece up here. I think this is just actually a fucking great big lump of filler that's on the edge of the wing there. But the rest of the profile lines up quite nicely. It's been a replacement wing because you've got this tight area here. It still needs a little bit of dressing and so forth, but the idea was to get it on the car so that Steve can have a play around with it later on. But that's that one. The door gap down the back end here, I don't know what we're going to fucking do. Trouble is, there's been a panel put along here, repair panel, and I think, judging by the way the other things have been repaired on this particular vehicle, it's been laid over the top of the original steel. So the other thing is the boot lid. I've been digging into this. Now, kind of went over there. And the more I got into this, the more shit it became. And then I ultimately just chopped it all off. Bollocks to it. And then once I chopped it all off, see how thick that thin filler is. Look at that. Good that. Once I chopped it all off, it's like, oh mate, skin's actually in quite good order on this thing, and the frame is relatively free. The skin on this thing is terrible, but the frame is relatively good. So I'm going to be going, I think, I'm going to see if I can separate this one off first of all. If I can, then fabulous. If I can't, and basically what I'm doing is a spot weld to drill on the edge here. So by running a cutting disc down very carefully between the inside and the outside sections, you can separate the frame from the rest of the skin. And as you can see, the skin is actually coming off relatively intact. All of this lot under here is largely surface rocks. There is some filler in there, there's a bit of brass in there, there's a hole came through there, but on the whole it's not too bad. So I'm going to carry on, see if I can get the skin off. And the reason for doing this is because it's just a fucking shambles. The more I went over it with the zip wheel, the more holes I opened up with the frame on this. So I've got a good skin, I've got an acceptable frame. We're going to Frankenstein them. Oh, there it is. Dodgy frame is off. Excuse me, hickety uppity. So I think now I'm going to repeat exactly the same process. You know, so like Land Rovers, I didn't put any paint on the inside of these things. I think it's whatever overspray got in there is where they got painted. So let me see if I can repeat exactly the same process for this one. Because the skin came off largely intact. And the only bit really I had to adjust was this piece on the back edge here, which I had to bend up. So this thing's going to end up getting primed, I think, on the inside. Rust treat, prime, before we go anywhere else with it. Give it a damn good clean up. And see if we can get a straight skin onto a straight frame. It's probably about 45 minutes work to get that separated. An hour of fucking around beforehand, but you know, getting things to where I think that they might work. So here you can see the gap in between the outer skin and the inner frame, and all I do is put a cutting disc, 1mm cutting disc in there, and then walk it towards where the spot weld is. Spot weld, spot weld, spot weld, spot weld, spot weld, spot weld, and it just cuts through each of them like this. You don't have to go very deep, and as you can see, the lip on this is still largely intact. I might even put the crap frame onto the crap moulding, flog it. Well, customer can flog it, but might do someone else. In here it's just surface rust, I'm afraid. It's quite unusual, as Mr. Jones would say. Right, the other frame's off. A little bit more difficult getting these edge bits off on this one, largely because I think when the skin had rotted away, they kind of built up this edge with lots of weld, but I'll be able to make that good. It's better on the other side as well, this one. It looks alright. Now, the only problem I'm going to have is that when I put that on the car, it was all over the fucking place as far as the skin was concerned. So what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to clean up all these edges before I do any cutting or anything. I'm going to see how this, now as a bare frame, fits onto the car, and check, adjust it if necessary. But all of this shit down here is the stuff that comes out. It's basically just sealant that they put along the edges of the ribs. What they did is very clearly this is a Mark II. I need to turn it into a Mark I. As you can see here, it's rotted along that edge, really, pretty much where the seal would have rested. Now the skin, yeah, I think it was a good idea to take this thing apart. I mean, look at it. It really has been. The skin on this thing is fucked. So that's the one that I took off, and this one really was all over the fucking place as well. Whereas this skin, which is the one that came off the car, is actually far, far better. And just to finish up the day, before the battery runs out, I have cleaned back all the rust on the skin and the frame. I know I still need to weld a repair in on the frame, but I wanted to get the rest of it ready so that it can kind of be primed and probably top coated on the inside edges, which is something that it looks like it had a waft of red oxide, and that was it really. Yeah, it's been a fairly robust day's work. Frankenstein process continued. So we're halfway through. I still want to tidy all these welds up and so forth, but basically what I did, I took this piece here, cut along here, along the edge around here, these holes as well, joddle the edge of this, slip it underneath, weld it. And the only problems I had at this end is the welding looks untidy. As you can see, some under sealant or rust protection or whatever caught fire. And it was a pain in the arse welding, trying to weld when things are on fire. So now I've just trial fitted the skin to make sure that everything's still kind of in alignment, and it is. I'll do this edge next, and then I think really it's going to go up to Steve's to get a coat of primer on it, really, inside and out, once I flatten these welds back. And then I can assemble the two halves of the shell together. Seems alright, doesn't it? A couple of tiny little holes up here I need to sort out as well. It's going in the right direction. Well, it's just the frame, obviously, but it lines up a damn sight better than it has done. I still need to put filler up here, tidy all this lot up. Closes, stays closed, it's not going to open. Once the skin is on the outside, it's going to toughen this entire frame up. Now, because it still sits a little bit high as we go along the edge of the boot lid, I'm thinking about rolling this edge over a tiny bit and seeing when I put the skin on for now. No, that's wrong, Richard. If it just hugs it just a little bit tighter, keeps the line between, because I know everyone that's got a Stag will know that the boot lids do not line up nicely. The gap along the back here is a bit awkward as well, isn't it? It's tighter on one side than it is the other. So I need to basically just square everything up, make sure I'm happy with it, get the whole thing painted, primed, then I can weld the inner and the outer skin together. I've made up a new reinforcing plate there for the catch, for the button, and then a couple of rib nuts, a couple of metric screws. That's all right. I think once this has, I'm just going to percuss this down a tiny bit here, because it's just got a tiny lift there where I put that weld in. That's easy enough to bend back down again, so I just end up with a skim of filler, and yeah, that moves forwards. Fucking thing. Oh God, I'm knackered with it. How many hours can you spend on one fucking boot lid? We need new boot lids to be available. Oh, just noticed that that strip on the back there is all up and down and all over the place. It's probably to do with the deformity there as well. In fact, that's just pushed that down. What I could do here is use the stainless strip. That's the top, that's the bottom. Just to see whether it lines up or not. Because it might need a bit of trimming just before I put any paint on it. You can see it's all over the place at the moment. I'm not convinced that the strip is correct because it's got a number of dents on it where it probably was adjusted to fit the old kind of messed around with boot lid, so we might need to get another one of these. It's not the best of shape really, is it? Don't underestimate the amount of work it requires to do one of these fucking boot lids. I've got it, so I'm more or less, it goes down, still not beautiful. Some of that's the seal, some of it is actually the boot lid. It's not fully lined up yet, but the trim strip does fit. It's mangled, I'm afraid. It does fit, and it lines up. Found some more filler. Oh, fucking brilliant. And some more filler. Oh, fucking brilliant. I'll see what Steve wants to do with that lot. And that's probably why it's bent, because it sticks on there. Yes, so I primed the inside of it, inside of the frame, and then I've used a Sikaflex product really just to seal the skin against the frame. Welded it down the edges, ground the welds back. It needs quite a bit more prep, I think. I think Steve's going to swear at me when he sees this. And it's all back together again. Boot lid. The fingerprint on it. Boot lid. Well, that's different, isn't it? This trim, though, that goes on the edge here, it's a flipping nightmare. I'm just going to go and clean that up in a second. But it closes now. Grab your hands. Driver's door. Yes. That was the one that came intact, but had the problem up here. So Steve the Body has made up an edge here, welded it on, prepped it, painted it, Nice, eh? I like this blue interior. And then passenger door, which was the existing shell, but with the new Stag Owners Club Tooling Fund Limited door skin on it. It's nice. Ignore all the bits that need doing on the interior. This is very much a rolling resto, this particular car. If you're ever tempted to buy one of those stick-on veneer kits for your dashboard, that's what they end up looking like a few years down the line. It's not good, is it? Nothing to do with this current owner. But yeah, I'm pleased with that. It's a world different from how it came in. Certainly a lot more presentable. No rusty spots on the doors or anything. It's moving in the right direction.